in retrospect, I think I was never particularly good at recognizing faces, but it only really hit me when I went to what in England is called public school, St Paul's School in London, at the age of 12. Now there were 600 boys at St Paul's School between, I guess, 12 and 17. And though they differed in size and energy and character in every other way, I really had quite a lot of difficulty recognizing them. With people I saw a great deal of, people who became and still are my closest friends, Eric Korn and Jonathan Miller, I did grow to recognize them, although initially I had to use particular criteria. Jonathan was tall and red-haired. Eric had thick spectacles and thick eyebrows. Originally I recognized them by this, then I came to recognize their faces, but I didn't recognize too many other people. And years later, when Jonathan and I were looking at a photograph of the entire school, Jonathan, who is fabulous, who is a super recognizer in this regard, was able to recognize hundreds of people, and I could recognize virtually none of them. Beside difficulty recognizing faces, I had a certain amount of difficulty recognizing places. This came up almost comically one time when my nephew visited me in Mount Vernon. I lived then in Mount Vernon, New York, and we went out for a walk, and it started raining, and I said we better get back to the house, but I couldn't find the house. And we walked round and round, getting drenched in this unfamiliar town where I'd lived for 7 years, until finally I heard a shout, and it was my landlord who wondered what was going on. He said I'd passed the house 3 or 4 times without any sign of recognition, and that we both looked rather miserable. But there I didn't recognize the house I'd lived in or the street I'd lived on for most of the 1970s. Sometimes I've even had ludicrous instances not recognizing myself. I've occasionally almost bumped into a large bearded man and started to say sorry and realized it was a mirror. On one occasion I was in a cafe with some outdoor tables, and I turned to the window and started preening myself, you know, as people with beards do, and then I saw my reflection was not preening itself, and that what I had taken for my reflection was in fact a bearded man on the other side of the window who wondered why I was doing this in front of him. I can give certain facts about my face. Large ears, and of course I'm bearded, which is a fact, and now I'm turning very white, which is a fact. I have a little gap between 2 teeth there, which I've always had, but I can't visualize it too well, and I could imagine not recognizing it in a photo. Sometimes it's more severe there because one doesn't have the moving body and the motor style. And rather embarrassingly, in Uncle Tungsten, when I included a photograph of the man after whom the book was named, it turned out to be the wrong uncle. And Uncle Tungsten's children wrote to me indignantly, and they said, how could you put someone else, they said, who looks nothing like our father? Anyhow, I remedied this in the paper bag. But that was an embarrassing prosopagnotic error. But then there's some visual things which are rather good. I tend to remember that that a particular passage in a book is on, say, page 533, a third of the way down, and slightly indented. I don't consciously sort of put this in memory. It's almost a pre-attentive. So that helps. Although I may say, yes, the passage is on page 533, a third of the way down, I don't know that I image it when I see this. I think the thing may be coded as a description. And there has in fact been an imagery debate for a century or more as to whether or not the mind has images or merely rather abstract descriptions which serve in their stead. The answer seems to be that the mind has both, and sometimes one uses one or the other or both together.